Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about Mason Mount, Harry Kane, striker situation, goalkeeper, and takeover. Have quite a bit to unpack. I apologize, the audio is probably not going to be amazing. I'm having to record this on my AirPods, and my regular microphone is broken, waiting for a new one to come in. It should be okay, but just for occasionally it gets a little bit electric-y sounding. So hopefully it is all right, at least for one video here and now. So let's get into it because I have a lot of news actually to unpack here and to talk about. First and foremost, Mason Mount. Overnight after the FA Cup final, I was told that United would immediately be stepping up their plans to move forward on signings and that Mason Mount is likely to be the first one. Talks were reportedly opened in the last week. It was prior to that, they did start initial contacts at least on Thursday during the Chelsea versus United game or afterwards. United are very well informed on this. In the end, I expect the offer price to be a bit of a structured one of around 50 plus add-ons, 55 plus add-ons. They are in talks over that. They think they can get a deal done. There's a lot of expectations from all sides. Despite reports that Chelsea are looking to keep Mason Mount, it is my understanding that they have not really been particularly proactive. He's still even waiting for a discussion or a call from Todd Boehly, and that, again, it is more PR than anything in terms of the position around the club that Mason Mount is expected to leave. This is the one that I think is probably the most nailed on happening and quite significant. So I was told that they would move forward with it. It was reported on Sunday that the Telegraph reported United are lining up a bid. That is correct. They are. They've been in discussions and they're going to submit something to Chelsea to hopefully get a deal done. Mason Mount is not all going to be off with England for internationals, so their hope is to get it fully done in time for him to return part of the training before the preseason tour and all of that, and they expect that they'll be able to pull this off. It should be noted, of course, that this transfer has been approved by the ownership and they have been allowed to move forward with it. That was a significant thing, I think, to understand from Rob Dawson's report this morning from ESPN, because I think there's some meaning in that. We'll talk about it with the takeover. So that is Mason Mount. It's not expected to be an issue. Personal terms are expected to be in the range of $200,000 a week plus some incentives. That's what he wants. That's what he'll get. And this is there's about as many of the things that need to happen for a transfer to occur in this case as you can get. United pressing ahead. They're making a bid to Chelsea formally very shortly, and you should expect this one to happen. So there's not too much more to say on this until that gets accepted, until they get into the advanced stages. The only thing, of course, is making sure that the fee is agreed with Chelsea. Usually this isn't a problem. Chelsea do need to sell. Chelsea do want to sell. They want to sell in June, and this will help. And they may be having to move on to more expensive targets from Ugarte to Caicedo and Lavia due to the situations and losing out on Ugarte, so they need this. Moving on, the striker situation is a very interesting one. I was again told that Kane would be one of the first ones that United will move forward with. They are pressing ahead with contacts to Chelsea. However, it is expected by all parties that they will be unsuccessful in their attempt to get Harry Kane. And this is where things get rather interesting. Harry Kane, obviously the top target overall. There's interest from Real Madrid and all that now. It's expected that he would cost somewhere in the range of over £100 million to get done, and in one lump sum upfront payment from, to get it done. The more reports that come out from London and such indicate as well that it is extremely unlikely and that United know it and that there's a lot of pessimism, but they're going to try. However, at the same time, I can say with absolute certainty that United are extremely well informed on Rasmus Hojlund. I've gotten a bit more bits and pieces over the last few days on this one. A long time ago, I said keep an eye on him, keep an eye on him. I didn't have a lot of details. I just kept hearing that he could be a legitimate target. There was obviously the reports from Lowry and others. But what I can say as of today is United are very, very well informed on the Rasmus Hojlund potential signing. They know everything they would need to know. They can move very quickly on it, down to medical records, down to everything. This deal could be done very, very fast if they want it. And the way I understand it is they're going to move forward with this Harry Kane thing, get an answer very quickly, put some kind of offer and discussion in. They have other striker targets like Gonzalo Ramos and such that they're going to explore, but Hojlund could get done quickly. And I believe what will happen is they'll move forward with Rasmus Hojlund and sign him. And I think he's going to be a United player. That's what I think. It's not a guarantee, but I think he will be after they move forward on this Kane thing and then come back to him and try to make a signing there. That's what I would expect. It seems like that is where things are heading. It's just one you have to. There's so many ways that they could make this signing, and it just seems very reasonable. It would obviously free up more budget elsewhere. Obviously, the downside is it's not a 100% ready-made striker, but he is a very good player that can become something special in the future. That being said, I think they will want to work quickly to explore the other signings. Part of the thinking, as I see it, and this is where Erik ten Hag will have some difficulty under current management and struggling with things, is they want to sign Hojlund after they don't get Kane most likely, because they want to make sure they get a good project striker in, It's going to be tough to see, can they get two? Can they get another one on top of that? He's not going to know, and it's all in all likelihood at the current state of the budget with Mount and Hojlund, you've got to be spending your money in other positions now if you're going to want to get it. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation there, and that's why there needs to be a lot of clarity on the takeover. Can they get another striker on top of Hojlund? Can they move forward with another one? Not sure, but the simplicity of the situation is they're moving on Kane. They know everything they need to know on Hojlund, and they could progress that very quickly. They're extremely well informed on it. And then in addition to that, they're probably going to look at some alternate targets to Kane, perhaps before just pulling the trigger on Hojlund, but they're moving it up to the stage in which it can be done, and that is what we could say about a few different deals. Mason Mount, etc. They're moving these things up to a stage which they can be done. I'm not going to talk a bunch about like Rice and other midfield targets in here. They're doing the same thing with Declan Rice, moving it up to a stage where at least they understand the terms of the deal. Could there be a scenario where if they don't get Kane, they then move on Hojlund and make a big offer for Rice? Yeah, it's quite possible. It is quite possible, and that might be one line of thinking, the different scenarios that are at play here. There's a lot of work being done on all of these targets to get things up to that stage. They're doing the same thing with Rabiot, getting that top move forward. The only hang up could still be if the wages are out of control and the signing on fee and such, but they are talking, they are moving forward in discussions on across the board on these targets for all these different kind of scenarios that can happen, and see, you know, what can happen next. But at this point in time, I would say Mason Mount, Hojlund are very real prospects. Mason Mount, Hojlund, and Rabiot are very real prospects for signing United. And it's not good enough for what we all need. You're right, but if it frees money for elsewhere, like getting a goalkeeper in two, would you say that Costa, Rabiot, Mount, and Hojlund is a bad window? No. Does it make us league title contenders next year? Probably not, but it may the year after, and it sets a good foundation. Anyway, they are progressing across all these different deals, and again, it doesn't mean every single one will get done. Mount, Kane, other strikers, Hojlund, Rice, Rabiot, etc. They're progressing on all of them. Now, just to recap that, moving on Kane, Hojlund could be done quite quickly if they decide to move over to that, but don't lose sight of some of these other striker names like Ramos and such that they may check out quickly before moving on to Hojlund. Goalkeepers. Now, here's where I want to talk about a few different things that are my information, as well as some of the things I think people are getting very upset about here. A long time ago, I said it was to re-sign Hay on lower wages and look for a new goalkeeper that could be the number one moving forward. That still remains the plan, is my understanding. That's what ten Hag wants. That's what Murtaugh wants. Now, I know for a fact that Diogo Costa is the number one target. I know for a fact they've scouted him enormously. I know for a fact they've had discussions about it. I also know for a fact they have many, many other keepers. I don't know their names. They have many other keepers, more than 5 other potential keepers that could come in and be the number one. I'm thinking David Rea, Jan Sommer are a couple of the names most likely, but there's more that could come in with the view of being the number one keeper. Have backups too. So when reports come out, you have from Simon Mullen, who's very good with Erik ten Hag, that says he wants a keeper. When reports come out from other sides that are likely more on the club side of things, saying that money is not being planned for the keeper, that doesn't mean a keeper isn't wanted. That doesn't mean a keeper won't be bought. It doesn't mean that it cannot happen. This is a problem of budget and how far the funds stretch, and that's how it's always been, not that Ten Hag doesn't want one. And so there's a lot of attention being put on a goalkeeper, but it's if the money can get there. And this is, it's an interesting thing because overnight after the FA Cup, Erik ten Hag made those comments, right, about he will fight for what he wants, he will fight for what he sees on the football side of things and all of that. Well, someone sent me a very long voice message overnight that I found very interesting about this before the reports came out about not having the money for a keeper. And it was said that one of the things was that he very much wants a keeper, but what he's struggling with is that Erik ten Hag feels like he promised more than what right now is being given to him, and a big part of that is the takeover and the Blazers, that he should be able to get Mason Mount, a striker, another midfielder or another forward, and a goalkeeper. He should be able to get all of those. He should be able to spend 250 million. Probably 250 million is what it would take to do all of that. And that's what he's expecting. That's what he's essentially been led to believe in his discussions with the club when he took the job at the beginning, that he would be able to do over these summers. And he expects that to be lived up to, that the 100 to 150 is not a realistic price, and it's not enough for the club to be showing the ambition that is needed. So he's in a fight here. So if you kind of do the math here, you have on one hand Mullen and myself and others, Erik ten Hag wants a goalkeeper. On the other hand, there's not money for a goalkeeper. So when you hear these comments about fighting and the things I've been saying for months about how Erik ten Hag is unhappy, about how Erik ten Hag needs clarity on what's going on, about how things are being held up, about how budget's being limited, it's tight, they're going to have to ask for approval for every signing from the Glazers. What does that tell you? Put it together. Does it mean we're not going to get a goalkeeper? If the Glazers stick around and get their way, maybe not, if the Glazers are in charge and have the takeover, it's going to be a fight to get the approval for it. Do you see? That's the point. It's going to be a fight to get these funds approved, to get what is needed. Erik ten Hag wants a goalkeeper. Erik ten Hag wants multiple signings. Erik ten Hag wants what he wants. We know that. He has high ambitions. He wants the club to back him and show it. And there's nobody with more sway at United right now and with more public backing than Erik ten Hag, right? And so there's a good chance he will get what he wants, but obviously, a big part of that would be the takeover being finalized, because as of now, Mason Mount and a striker may be all the club says you can get, and then it's going to be a fight to get more than that, you see. And so that's going to be affecting the plans, and that's where the frustration lies. Erik ten Hag might be thinking, if I get Hojlund and I get Mount, I won't have, right now, the way it's set up, I'm not going to have money for anybody else. Is Hojlund good enough? Well, let's explore all our striker targets and see if we can figure someone out. But if we get one of those, we still can't get anybody else. So a lot up in the air, mostly down to the takeover, but don't get conflicted at what Erik ten Hag wants. That's why the talks are being progressed for Mount, a striker, and Hojlund, and Rice, and Rabiot, and a goalkeeper, and possibly Urian Timber, who was, of course, at the FA Cup, or Kim Min-jae. I don't know about those ones still. I'm still unsure about that. There's a lot. There's a lot that's wanted, and the question is priorities, and you can see that the first thing is going to progress is that midfielder and striker. Without a doubt, midfielder and striker. And the funds, if they can get there, these other things will happen. Now, moving on to the takeover, obviously it's the thing that everybody wants to know, everything about all the time, and understandably so, because as we've been discussing here, it obviously can affect so much of what's going to happen and everything else. And what I can say is this. I know that United were expecting there to be an update. And now when I say United expecting there to be an update, it's because the people at United don't know what's going on. Anybody below Richard Arnold does not know what's going on and what's in the process in the takeover. They probably know less than we do, or than I do, or when the reports come out, and a lot of times it probably informs them as much as they hear. And I know for a fact they did not know last week. But What I can say is there's been, from people I speak with, there's been some indication that they have been expecting reports, expecting to be informed of what is going to happen moving forward here in the next few days after the FA Cup. They're expecting that. That doesn't mean it's done, but they're expecting to be informed on what is going to happen. And again, by all accounts, you know where I'm at. You know where I'm at on this. You know my information on this. It's all looking one direction. I don't think I made a video since then, but that report from the Financial Times, for example, that was talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's potential revised offer, well, you have to bear in mind it's not really a revised offer from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It's like this. This is the point being understood. The discussion was around Sir Jim Ratcliffe taking over control of the club and perhaps Joel and Avram keeping, say, 20%, right? Or 40%, I don't know. 40% of the club themselves, then being bought out at a later date. The discussion is around, instead of the 2 Glazers holding the 40%, the 6 Glazers hold the 40%. Same thing. In effect, it has nothing to do with Jim Ratcliffe's offer. He's saying, I'm buying the 60%. You figure out, are you 4 of you selling all of yours, or 6 of you selling a big part of yours and keeping a small part? Now, why that? Because with the long-term buyout, with the put and call options later, it means they're going to get more money for their shares. So it may just be all the 6 siblings want an even piece of the pie in this process. But the example I give and why people would vastly overreact to the situation, I'll put it in a really dumb term. If you bought a pizza and you said, all right, I'm taking 60% of it, do you care what happens to the other 40%? Probably not. Well, that's the same thing with this situation. So that's what's happening. And the fact that that's being under discussion, in some ways you could look at it and say, they're talking about how they're going to split up the money. At that point, you've almost kind of indicated you're accepting a bid, right? Because you're saying, well, should it be with 2? Should it be with split up 6 ways? How are we splitting it? Because it doesn't affect the money that's being offered from Ineos. You're essentially saying that money's good. We just want to figure out how to split it up. Regardless, if that's being discussed, it's probably into the details. As I've said for some time, I always reference that Times report that says it could take weeks to figure out this takeover process of and how it's structured, even if the general bid and valuation is accepted or acceptable. And I believe that that's simply what's ongoing. Obviously, Glazers being present at the FA Cup, Glazers making decisions right now is not an indication of a group of people who are on the verge of leaving fully or completely departing the club. Even I think what Brian was there and never shows up. So point being, you know where I'm at on this from my information. It's all going one way, but I do think we are nearing at least the conclusion of this is what is going to happen. It will take time even then for the takeover to complete, but in the meantime, it should be allowable to move on the major targets, and it may be that it's later in summer once the process is fully complete that things like the goalkeeper can be addressed. Okay, so that's what's happening there. I do expect again, it's not 100% solid. I'm trying to give you everything I can well ahead if it's possible, but there isn't some more expectation from the club that they will be informed on things in the coming days, much sooner than, not forever, but there was an expectation that pretty quickly after the FA Cup they would be informed on what is happening. And that is still the expectation. It's Monday. I think this, will hopefully be a significant week, barring any further holdbacks or anything like that. So that's where things are at. It needs to happen. It needs to get done so Eric Ten Hag can get what he needs. But that's a summary of things. I'll update you as we move forward into the process of all of these discussions. But yeah, keep a mind on that. In summary, moving forward on Mason Mount, likely first deal, likely happening. Pressing on Kane, keeping an eye on the other strikers. Hojlund is extremely well informed for United and one they could get done. It's from there. It's going to be a fight on what happens next and who else they can get. But they're moving these other deals up and forward anyway. Okay. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.